Tesla delivers over just shy of 500,000 cars in 2020. South Australia achieved 99.7% wind and solar for a day. That's crazy. 450,000 solar installations in the US in 2021. I don't know. And a giant ultra-capacitor for the grid, a 5 megawatt electronic device. I'm Tim Montague, your co-host. Welcome to the Clean Power Hour. And I'm joined, as always, by the man in Massachusetts, the commercial solar guy, John Weaver. Welcome to the show, John.
Timothy, Happy New Year. How the heck are you?
Happy 2021. Everybody is jumping up and down for joy to put 2020 to bed. Although I had a great year in 2020. It was a banner year in the solar industry here in Illinois. And despite the pandemic, we really had a wonderful year. And so, of course, it's a very challenging year. It was a challenging year for the United States, and that is tragic. And hopefully we can put that to bed and put it behind us here in 2021. How was your holiday, John?
Pretty solid. I put 3,500 miles on a Tesla, driving my mom to camping sites in North Carolina, South Carolina, and Georgia. She slept in the car, used camp mode, use anywhere from 15 to 30 miles of range overnight to keep the car at 71 in 19 to 50 degree weather. And that was pretty cool. So that was most of my holiday. That was my mom's gifts. Get her out of the woods because she has been very isolated, and so have I. And we isolated, camped, and so that was our holiday.
Sweet.
It was nice.
What was your favorite camping spot?
Jekyll Island in Georgia.
Ooh.
And I know I spoke quickly because I went to 3 spots. We spent 6 nights total. KOA, just north of Charleston on the water. And then Tybee Island, which is south Charleston, about an hour and a half, 2 hours. And then Jekyll Island, another 2 hours. And so Jekyll's connected to an RV. It's on an island. It's right on the ocean. Jekyll Island, of course, it's on an island. And our camping spots were right next to a little bird sanctuary. So we were just surrounded by birds, tall trees, big wide open area. Really, really nice. Really expensive supermarket right down the street. But, it's camping. You got to pay a little extra when you're eating in the woods. So it was nice. Really liked it down there. And the car was perfect. The car did everything it needed to do. And I'm at 10,000 miles, almost 10,000 miles, just over 3 months of ownership because I drive a lot.
So I have a beef to pick with Elon Musk now. I'm still a Tesla bull, but the range that the car tells you you're going to get is not the range that you're going to get in the real world. And my thing is that the car is super smart. It knows how I drive. It knows where I'm driving, and it should give you a more accurate estimate of what your range is. My car is the long range Model Y. It should go at least 300 miles. It says when battery's full, and you have to change the settings to get the battery even to charge that high, right? Because it's not good for the battery. But then I only get about 200 miles of range, and I end up having to charge anyway if I'm going to go for a 300-mile drive. So I don't know. I don't know if mainstream consumers are going to buy that.
I've seen people talk about that, and I noticed it as well. I know that if you go closer to 55 miles per hour versus my average speed, which is in the 65 to 73 range, that has an effect. Of course, heating in the wintertime has an effect, cooling in the summer.
Yep.
All those
that
things.
stuff.
The car should update though and communicate that information. And that's a good point. If you're going 55, it should tell you what your range is at 55 with the AC on. If you're going 73, it should tell you what that is. And like you said, it should have some programmability to know you. Like Google Maps adjusts, I think, arrival time based on its user. I don't know this for a fact, but they're super accurate with me.
They are. The estimated arrival time is always spot on.
Yeah.
And I'm never late for meetings.
Yeah, at least not from a Google Maps perspective. It's if I follow their directions, I get there when they say it. And that's 10 mile per hour driving difference, easy for average drivers. So Elon, you should talk to the Google guys, figure out their engineering tools, and whip some of that into the car and fix this mileage chart.
Honestly, I think they have the information. They're just not displaying it. But the other thing that I've grown very fond of auto steer. This is the full
Oh yeah.
self-driving capability. When I'm on the highway, I put it in auto steer. It maintains safe distance. You change the blinker and it'll go over automatically. That works very well. What is slightly annoying is when you come to a merge, when there's a lane coming into the lane you're in, the car all of a sudden sees this very big wide
Yes.
lane and it
Yes.
moves over, and
Yeah.
that's not a natural instinct for me as a driver. I still stay in the middle of the existing
Yep.
lane.
Yep.
And that's a very small thing. I don't know why they couldn't fix that, but
Well, you're kind of spoiled, Tim. Tim, you're a little bit spoiled. You came in, you bought this car, and it drives itself, and now you're complaining it doesn't drive itself as well as you. And a year ago, this technology was nowhere near this. From everything I've been reading, it has accelerated its development, and you actually happen to be coming in at a great time in its development when it's pretty far along. And these are the little edges that have to be worked off. And
well, the
that's
other thing is they promised us, everybody in the Tesla sphere was saying, oh yeah, the full self-driving beta is going to go broad release. Right now it's in narrow release, but I didn't get the broad release. Did you?
nope. But I'm okay with that. Listen, you're buying the future, dude. You got to recommend. You're among those who have sold their soul to the devil of innovation and technology. And there's funny little articles ever since 2016 where Elon says this year we will drive full self-driving from LA to New York City. And then he says it in 17 and 18 and 19 and 20. And you know what? Yeah, that's okay. Just gotta, you gotta play with it. You gotta take what you can get from them and go for it. Recognize that sales and development and all this stuff, these are challenges and they take some time. And I jokingly like to say that physics says time is real, but I don't believe in time, but it still exists. And so we got to be patient with it. But I agree with you. I want a full self-driving everything. I'm happy with what I got so far. I got a car that doesn't burn gas, and I can camp in the woods with it. And those were the two huge drivers for me. And I'm happy so far.
Yeah, I still love the car, but there's no reason why we shouldn't tell Tesla how to make it better. But let's get into the news. We have a little bit of a shorter episode today. We have some time constraints. So GE is disrupting the wind industry with the Haliad 13 megawatt wind turbine. This was a story in the New York Times. Of course, this product has been rolling out for 2 years now. Here's the title in the New York Times: a monster wind turbine is upending an industry. The turbine you see here, and I'm going to show another photo of it front on, is 13 megawatts. The blades on this baby are 720 feet long. They're more than 2 football fields long. The tower is 800 and some feet tall. And so this is a massive, massive machine. Here in Illinois, we have a lot of wind farms. Most of those turbines are 2 and 3 megawatt. So this is targeting the offshore wind where they can go taller without getting, challenges for permitting, I think. But it's cool to see this industry evolving. There's another shot. Can you see that, John? I'm not sure which screen I shared.
Yep.
It's a front on. This is an installation in the Netherlands, and what a beast. So it's cool to see those numbers just getting bigger and bigger. And I don't know what, in 5 years, 10 years, maybe we double that again, but it's really excellent technology.
So these units, so this the Haliad,
Yeah,
hardware.
the name they picked, I can't say I'm a fan of because it's very hard to pronounce, but it is Haliad,
Haliad, okay.
Haliade.
So it's actually a platform, and it started at 12 megawatts, and using mostly the same hardware and of key using the same sized nacelle, which is the big box at the top, and the same size turbines. And I think that the same size blades. And I think they're closer to 107 meters in length. 700 feet sounds a little bit long. Maybe it's the full size of their diameter of the sweep of the circle.
Nope, that's the
Um,
blade length, brother.
okay. Well, it's so the hardware, it's moving from 12 to 13 to 14. Well, 14 megawatts has already been released, or at least it's been sold into a project. And it's only one project. It's the Dogger 3, which is a 2025-ish, 27-ish project
Yeah,
off the coast of the UK.
yeah.
And I bet you this thing gets up to 15 megawatts for a single unit. And that's pretty neat. Like, a stat that they often like to show is that somewhere around 12 megawatts, 11 megawatts, a single rotation of the fan could power a house for a day. So just think, whoosh, that's it. That's all the electricity you need for a day, and that's pretty neat. And I happen to think that offshore wind is gonna. Well, not me. I mean, all the smart people in the world think that wind is going to be 30-40% of the globe's electricity. I think it might be bigger, and I think offshore wind is going to be gigantic. In fact, I think science fiction offshore wind type stuff might occur, where we have giant islands of offshore wind floating in the northern and southern hemisphere in these two corridors that are pretty high up and pretty low on the globe, and it's just wind bands that occur here. And those things alone could power the Earth easily with tiny little splotches of it. And so there might be some super science fiction where we have islands that are 1,000 miles across of wind, and that's what powers the northern hemisphere if we have a global network. So I don't know. I really love this giant offshore wind stuff. It's science fiction-y. It's fun.
Yeah, they can make those platforms floating platforms, and so you can go super deep water. Of course, it has to be tethered to the seafloor. So the deeper the water, the more expensive the installation goes. But I'm with you. The amount of offshore wind is staggering, and we could easily power all of society with offshore wind. I mean, the numbers for solar are also staggering. 10,000 times more solar energy hits the earth than we use in a year. So that just says it right there that clearly we can power society with wind and solar.
Yep.
It's just a question of making it work and installing storage devices, whether that's hydrogen or lithium ion batteries. We don't have a hydrogen story this week, but I think we're going to see a lot of hydrogen stories this year. There seems to be a tipping point being reached in the hydrogen industry with fuel cells, which are basically batteries that run on hydrogen. But
Yeah.
we should probably move on. Tesla delivered a meager 500,000, uh, just shy of 500,000 cars in 2020. And that was that was a big deal for Tesla, of course. Um, what do you want to say about that?
I thought it was neat that some interview that I saw Elon Musk do in like 2014, he says, "Yeah, we need to do 500,000 cars by 2020, in 2020." And
Really? He
yeah,
called
there's
it, huh?
he called it, and if you look out there, there's multiple professional stockbroker types who are like, nope, not happening. Totally not whack. Or totally whack. No company's ever grown this fast. It just doesn't make sense. Car companies don't grow like that. You can't build that fast. Blah, 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 blah. They were all wrong. And Tim, that's why you've now got X volume of stocks because of Elon. And it's because he did it, and he built these batteries, he built these cars, he built these factories. And you know what? He's able to do that and get better because he listens to customers like you who get on his case via Twitter and say, hey, this is what's up with the car. And common, broad stream customers, they want all the features. And for him to sell 20 million cars like he pitches, like he really dreams of, or for him to sell 5 million like Teslas and VWs, or 10 million, He's going to have to take care of the mainstream. He can't be people like me who are willing to sleep in their car. That's not normal.
What's amazing is that 442,000 of the 499,000 cars sold were Model 3 and Y. So he, truly those lower cost vehicles and more practical vehicles are hugely popular. And I predict that the Model Y will actually be the most popular car in the United States in about 5 years. Americans love SUVs. I'm digging the SUV. I've been throwing my cross country skis in the back like nothing, and away I go. I'm also doing a lot of renovations on the RV, so I can throw a full sheet of plywood in the back, and you know, I just love my small SUV. But the
Yep.
computer has to tell me the truth. All right, let's talk about your blog, John, commercialsolarguy.com. If you go to the news tab, and you're so good and so kind to bring us a weekly story or two.
So
Solar
this,
prices are decreasing. What?
yep. So this article is me covering research put out by the Berkeley, one of the Berkeley lab groups, the EMP group at Berkeley Labs. This is a U.S. government research facility, and they just looked at historical data for solar going into 2019. So technically, this data is already a year old. But this is the second article I wrote. So there's two of them. Just back to back, wrote one yesterday, one today, looking at the different pricing information. And, in this second half of the article, I look at some of the key data that drives pricing and some of the changes. And if you go up near the top of the article, you can see, first off, simply that on a state level, there's a difference in pricing. And there's a lot of reasons why different states have different pricing, cost of labor, experience, the total competition, supply chain development. And so I just kind of chat about all these reasons about variance in pricing. And, if you scroll down a little bit, you can see that the main driver in price drops is that chart on the left. And so if you click on that, you can see that really that just shows module pricing and soft costs and inverters a little bit. So that bottom row is the price of inverters falling. The middle one is the price of modules, and the top one is soft cost. And this is big, medium, and large. Residential, 0 to 100 kW in the middle, and 100 kW up on the right. And there's just multiple charts that show just various trends, so to say, of what's going on in the solar industry and pricing. And if you keep going down on the article, you'll notice there's another trend with the system size. The larger the system size, the lower the price. Obviously, Tim and I, you know this very well because this is what we do. In the top right, there's an X, Tim. Yeah, there you go. But then we also see that with system size, not only does the price go down with system size, which is cool, but we see that over time, the system size has also increased. So we have like kind of a multiplying effect. And you can see that in those charts that you're looking at right there near the top. Oh, scroll up a bit. Yeah, so the chart there on the left, that shows system size increasing over time. I was like, okay, cool. Well, if you go to the right, you can see that system sizes price per system it's lower the larger the system you get. So click that arrow. And now this is the residential. So obviously very small, very expensive, bigger, almost 50% cheaper if you go, up to 12 kW. Now, if you go to the next image over, you can see the same thing happening in commercial and industrial. And so you have a multiplying effect affecting variables. We're building bigger. We have cheaper panels. We have cheaper this. We have cheaper that. And all these different variables come together, and we can see pricing fall. And that's really just what this report was from Berkeley, is looking at different variables, module efficiency, just a bunch of research on solar. And it's within this document that I see the next link that we're going to cover. And I thought it was really cool. And it talks about the total number of installations that have occurred in the United States, total of solar. And, it took us until like 2016 to get to the first million. And then in 2019, we got the next million. And now in 2021, we're going to hit 3 million. So we're like, we're moving faster. And if you scroll down to that chart in the lower left side, you can see that in 2019, there were about 375,000 installations of all solar in the US. In 2020, that number is going to be like 425 because it grows at like 40 to 50,000 units. 2021, we're going to go, I got you to say 450,000 in the headline. I think we're going to get close to 500,000 installations this year, close to it. We may not hit it, but I bet we're over 475,000 installs. And that puts us way past 3 million unique solar power plants spread across the United States. And I just think that's cool. That's a lot of power plants distributed across the US. And we're going to get 500,000 of them either this year or next year in a single year. 500,000 solar power plants in 1 year are about to get installed. I think 3 million and 500,000. Both are just really cool numbers.
Yep. It's impressive growth in the industry. As I like to say, we're sitting on a rocket ship. And if you're thinking about getting into a new industry, solar and wind and storage is where it's at for the foreseeable future. Going to move on. We're going to give a quick update on Moss landing via YouTube. And this is a power plant.
Wow.
In the Bay Area of California, where they are installing a very large number of big white batteries made by Tesla.
That's so cool.
And they're retrofitting a natural gas powered power plant with batteries, which is, I think, a trend that we're going to see because you've got, generally speaking, some real estate around these power plants. And you've got this wonderful substation infrastructure, which you see there on the left. That's actually some newer equipment. There's another ginormous substation behind the camera here. But it's just on these, you can see the batteries are all still wrapped. I can't wait to see the Tesla logos on those containers, but talking about trends, John, 2020 was a hallmark for, multi-hundred megawatt storage projects coming out of the ground and not just being talked about, but actually getting under construction like this one here. I can't remember, is this 750 megawatts, something like that? I don't know. Maybe it's not that big.
Yeah. Yeah, it's that's a neat project. That was one of the first large ones that were signed.
Come closer to the mic. We can't hear you.
Oh, sorry about that. That's a neat project. That's one of the first large ones that were signed. And it's really neat to see it just come out and be constructed so fast. I mean, we're seeing hundreds of megawatt hours be rolled out. Each one of those shipping containers is about 2.5 megawatt hours. And, they're all built in a factory. And they have technicians, electricians running wires, connecting battery packs, and just assembling it on a factory line. And Musk has talked about his mega pack volume lines that in one of the prior calls, the mega pack manufacturing line was sold out through 2021. And he was seeing that there was a possibility of signing deals to sell it out in 2023. And that it needed to expand, needed more cells. I need more cells, more battery cells. And, maybe that's going to become the future rallying cry is need more battery cells instead of oil, instead of guns, instead of cars. We just need battery cells. And it's neat to see it roll out. It's really, really neat to see it roll out now. It's happening now.
Batteries are the limiting factor for the energy transition. which is why Tesla is going so hard after that technology, building their own, designing their own cells, right? The 4860, is that what it's called?
Yep.
Um, which is the size of a frozen orange juice can. It's a big, beefy cell, and they're going to put that in the structure of the car. My only concern about the structural battery, John, is the ability to retrofit it out then. And we're about to talk about a story about capacitors. If fast charging um, doesn't get where it needs to go, then battery swapping, like NEO is doing in China, could be a thing. And I'm just curious to see how that plays out. I get it. The first principles of it are beautiful, classic Elon Musk. And but that whole thing being encased in epoxy, right? You have to basically swap out the whole skateboard in order to change the battery, then, don't you?
Maybe. Yeah, I mean,
Give me
maybe
a
it
new
turns out.
board.
Yeah, maybe it turns out that Teslas aren't the most easily recyclable batteries for second use, or maybe it turns out that we just park a skateboard in our backyard. I don't know.
Well, we'll have to give an update on Redwood, the the battery recycling company, right? That who's the dude that started that?
JB Straubel.
JB Straubel. And I saw a little documentary, I think that Forbes did, one of those financial news outlets did on him. He's actually like really digging into that. They're actually processing consumer electronics. They did a tour of the facility. They have these ginormous bins full of cell phones and laptops and tablets, and of course, eventually car batteries and power walls, etc. And they're tearing them apart and separating out the lithium for repurposing so that we don't have to do raw mining of all this lithium, et cetera, rare earth metals. So that industry has a long way to go. But I believe in Straubel, just like I believe in Musk. I believe in Straubel. He's the real deal. He's not smoke and mirrors, and going to be a thing. All right, supercapacitors.
So I think first off, everybody, whenever people used to talk about batteries way back in the day, 10, 20 years ago, when I was saying, hey, we'll do solar power, people were like, we're not going to do solar, you need batteries. And then they'll say, but maybe ultra capacitors, because ultra capacitors are cooler than standard lithium ion. They can discharge and charge much faster. But there's always these limits with how ultra capacitors work. And I never understood them, and I still don't. But I was always sort of fascinated by them. And when Tesla bought the Maxwell company, which was an ultra capacitor company, I got a little more interested. And now I'm seeing getting plugged into the grid. I'm more interested. And this is a big one. And they're even using it as a weird, unique feature, which is something that interests me because, we have these ancillary services which are used to balance the grid because, the use of us using electricity is always up and down, up and down, up and down, up and down. And the generation is this curve. But the generation is a big giant machine and there's like a million little ones of us. So we have to like balance it. And in the UK, they're trying to figure that out, how you balance out a grid when you don't have a big spinning piece of metal. And they're using ultra capacitors and they're using it to listen to stuff happening on the grid in terms of electricity use and electricity generation and to respond so fast that because that's what ultra capacitors do, that the grid moves like smoother. Like instead of going like up and down or wobbling around the number, ultra capacitors make it like get right next to that number. I think. And so I'm just interested in it, and I wanted to bring it to your attention and our listeners' attention. And if you hear anything about ultra capacitors being deployed, send them my way to Twitter, Solar and Mass, commercial solar guy on Twitter, because I want to read about it and I just want to learn about it. And I want to see what they're going to do with ultra capacitors. Will we have like ultra capacitors in the new Roadster from Tesla that makes it accelerate 3 times faster for about 5 seconds and pull your eyeballs back into your skull? And then hook up some jet engines to it to lift you up off the ground. I mean, what is Tesla? Do you know what Tesla's doing with the ultra capacitor company they bought? I've heard nothing of it. I would like to know now, please. Elon, tell us.
Yeah, no, they've pretty much kept that under wraps. And I agree. I don't know what they're doing with Maxwell's technology, but clearly something. You know, for one thing, this story stands out for me because National Grid in the UK is going after 100% clean grid by 2025. That's 5 years away now, right? That's very interesting and it's very telling. The Europeans are 10 years ahead of us. We don't see anybody really going after anything hardcore before 2030, and most of the hardcore goals are 2050 goals in the US.
Yeah.
But and it's a 5 megawatt capacitor, which has got to be a ginormous device. I'm just so curious what it looks like and how it's put together. Do capacitors have cells the way batteries do? I don't know. Um, but and then I was curious about inertia. Do you understand inertia? Because that's a new concept for me.
I wouldn't say I understand it. I am conscious of it and I'm learning about it. And this inertia thing, literally what inertia is that they need the grid at 60 hertz because that's how we designed it. And so to keep it there, you literally have giant things that spin 60 times a second. And because electricity generation is funky and imperfect, and that all that the grid changing would affect how the electronics move. If you have a big giant thing that spins, and it has a much higher chance of staying at the rate that you need it to stay at because it's just a giant spinning thing. It has inertia. It's like 60 times a second. And if it holds that 60 times and just keeps spinning, that keeps the grid stable. Electricity use and electricity demand go up and down, and they're wiggling and wobbling. And so these giant things stick in the middle and keep the grid stable. And we're getting and we use steam and coal and everything to spin these things because that's what these giant generators are. It's giant pieces of metal spinning. And now that we're getting rid of coal and getting rid of gas, we're running out of giant spinning things that keep the grid stable. And we have to figure out how to keep the grid stable without inertia, without giant spinning things that are consistent.
Yeah.
And that's what this is. That's what this experimentation is. It's to figure out what technology will keep us safe. Because some people say batteries actually react too fast to grid instabilities and may cause challenges. So there's a dance. We're learning. This is a new grid. This is grid 2.0.
Yep. So we're at the time to end the podcast, John. Do you
gotta cover this last one.
Want to
We
do the
gotta cover
Australia story?
Yeah, no questions asked.
Okay.
I mean, that's big. That's important.
100% renewable day in South Australia. Mm-hmm.
I just think that chart down there, it's it. That tells us what we need to see. Oh, look at that, man. The green is wind and the yellow is solar.
Yep.
And that's just a great day of clean energy in country. Well, technically it's not country, that's a province of Australia.
Right.
That is, or is it states? Are they states? Are they the provinces is Canada? I think it's states or territories. I'm so bad with other countries.
Yeah, I think
but that's South Australia.
Australia.
Okay. And let's see, population, South Australia. I'll tell you, so it's much smaller than I thought. 1.67 million people.
Yeah,
Nonetheless,
it's like Montana. It's ginormous, and there's very few people there. But and of course they have massive solar resources. It is summer in Australia. That's the other thing. But still, the Australians, they're also going after wind and solar, more solar, I think, than wind. Obviously, it's both. There's lots of wind here on this chart, but I mean, Australian consumers are embracing solar way faster than here in the US, and they have cheaper installation costs. I think aren't they below $2 a watt for residential now in Australia, John? I mean, we're a buck.
Well, in terms of Australian dollars, it's like $1. And if you scale the price up, I think they're like $1.30 a watt for residential installations. So I think we're like 2.5 times the cost. At least, no, not 2.5, at least double. Uh, so it's a lot of paperwork. Like for instance, in Australia, you can show up the day of a project, sign a contract, start construction, and finish it all in one day. Like there's no submitting permits. You build the system. I show up. You're
Yeah.
like, yeah, I want to do solar. Here's a contract. There's my van. Look at the panels. Look at the metal. Look at the meter, and let's get to work.
Yeah, I'd like us to shine a light on the initiatives in the U.S. to simplify permitting and engineering. There are some companies that are going after that to, to make it super easy and more automatic. Um, and that's so critical, right? It should be like installing a new HVAC system or a new water heater, right? Getting a solar array on your roof should not be a big deal.
Take some work. Take some work. But hey, we're gonna do 500,000 of them this year or next year. So
Yes, we are. Well,
I like
John,
that.
we've come to the end of another Clean Power Hour. How can our listeners reach you?
Type into the Goog or your favorite search engine, commercial solar guy. You can find me on Twitter. You can find me on Instagram. You can find, that's my website right there. That's my big smiling head there. And, just all over the internet. And commercial solar guy. That is me. That is us. We have a team of 3 people.
508-4999 Sun. I like that phone number you got.
Yep. Sun equals 786, just to let you know. So there you go.
Cool. Well, you can find me at cesnrg.com/videos. That's where we keep all of our content. I just dropped a video this morning I'm excited about with Emily O'Leary. You see here, we talk about the Next Tracker Gemini 2 in portrait racking system and a real project that went in the ground in Northern Illinois called Marengo Solar. So check that out. Please subscribe to the channel if you appreciate our content. Give us a thumbs up, share it with your friends, and please reach out to us about guests for the Solar Podcast, which you see all those episodes here. And then, of course, the weekly Clean Power Hour coming to you every Wednesday. And that's about it. We will see you next week. I want to thank you, John, for joining us. And let's grow solar and storage.